Hello everyone, and welcome back to DC Talks. I'm Drew Kreisman. I'm here with my brother, Ira Kreisman. Literally, we're in the same room again, one of these.
That's always fun.
Yeah. And we're going to continue our conversation on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action movie from 1990 because we are just that cool.
That is exactly how cool we are, yes.
That's the exact amount. Hey, when last we left our heroes, we got their origin story from Master Splinter. He told us about the names and the weird fact that he apparently had ninja abilities before coming in contact with Ooze for some reason, but we got it, right? 4 baby turtles, coffee cup, Ooze, pizza, ninja, and now we're back to the present day, and April is coming to terms with all of that.
And she doesn't bump at all on mimicking his movements from my cage, because that would have been my first question.
Yeah, no, she was good there. It's some of the other stuff that she's going to get into. But after, so we finished on that scene, and Splinter explains everything, and she says, I'm not dreaming, and kind of accepts it. And then we get this really hard cut, which I really, really love. They're like, we get no explanation, but it's clear if you do the smallest little logical jump that we've just gone to the part now where they're taking her home.
Right.
And so we've hard cut to them in the sewers, and her asking, are you guys sure that you know where you're going?
Right. Well, because there's no street signs down here. They are escorting her not on the streets, but through the sewers, because they know the sewers.
Right. And we get another great New York joke that, again, I'm not sure I fully understood as a kid.
I'm not sure I fully understand it now.
Okay, well, so is it Mikey who says this?
Yes.
Okay, I thought
Mike's got the jokes.
Yeah, and he says, we're going to 11th and Bleecker? And then he goes, takes a big whiff of the sewage air around them and says, nope, this is only 9th Street.
So he can tell where they are in New York by the smell of the poop in the sewer?
Well, so, yeah, kind of, right?
Okay.
Right, so the joke is, I think this is at least a head fake toward anyone who would say, for people that live in the sewer, which is where the sewage is,
right?
They don't really talk about that much in Ninja Turtles. No. So at the very least here, it's this kind of, and I think it also gives us, again, very subtly the notion that like the turtles have grown up around this, right? So like the smell of sewage or something is something that they would be not only used to, but they could smell different kinds or how far it had gone through the system based on.
Okay.
And also if you're in New York, maybe there are certain more populated areas.
Sure. I haven't been to New York since we were teenagers.
It was 2001.
That's actually. Right, it was.
Yeah. It's August of 2001. Yeah.
But whenever I'm in a big city, I do notice that there is an aroma, especially around certain kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
And just sort of in general, depending on what kind of city it is, I guess.
Yeah. And so there's just the joke, I think, generally is that cities have their own types of smells and different types of places in the city might have their own types of smells, and then different sewage might have it.
Sure.
And so, all right. Which is why April's response of yuck is... And
I always understood her response because he took a big whiff and then she said yuck, but I didn't. Yeah. All right, fair enough.
Yuck. So then, they get her to her street. They come up out of the sewers. They let her get out onto the surface level, and she's, saying, hey, look, I'd love to invite you guys all in, but I don't have anything to offer you except maybe some frozen pizza.
So do you think she really did want to invite them in?
No, I think she was kind of done with this, actually.
Yeah. Thank you for rescuing me. I'm going to go home and pretend this never happened. Except she's not really, because she got attacked by ninjas in a subway.
I think it's both parts. I think she'd really like to go to bed. But I think there's also that inquisitive reporter and just naturally curious person side of her that wants to know more about these weird mutant turtle things that she's just discovered, right? So she leaves the door open. I'd love to invite you all in, but, all of you. But of course, pizza.
Pizza, yeah.
Did somebody say pizza? They all, I love it. She says, you guys eat pizza?
Doesn't everybody?
Love that line. Yeah. There's one thing that we can be universal about, right? A universal joy in life. And, so the boys all start going in, and we see that April, in fact, one of the characters, I think it's Donnie or Leo, asks, so you live above an antique store?
Uh-huh.
or you live in an antique store, and she corrects. It says actually
above
one.
Actually, yeah. And this is one of those spots where we get some of that talking over each other, right? So she says, all right, and they start to go off, and then you hear Leo off in the distance. Oh, did she say pizza? And then, so you live in an antique store?
Yeah.
Yep, pizza. Well, above, actually.
Yeah.
So it's two different conversations, but that rhythm is still there, and I think that's... We were watching last night again the Toy Galaxy guy talk about what a difficult production this had. But, I hear things like that. I watch this scene, I hear the rhythm of that delivery, and I think, that's really good and interesting and not something that I would have expected from a comic book superhero kids movie at the time or even really now.
Right. It's very purposefully done, like you said, the rhythms of it, the fact that people are talking over each other, but in a way that is realistic, but not so muddy and confusing that you can't hear anything. Like I know that movie Uncut Gems got a lot of praise for having a lot of that kind of very realistic city-style cross-chatter stuff, but for me, a lot of times it just got so fuzzy. It was almost anxiety-inducing because I couldn't understand what was going on. Where you're right, in this movie, they do it a lot, but you can take it all in. It becomes a part of the music of the dialogue of the movie, including actually exactly the way these next couple of scenes play out. I love the way this is edited and directed. Again, you wouldn't think of it necessarily, but as they're about to head in, April says, okay, so what kind of stuff you guys like on your pizza? And Mikey's still, he's in rare form. He's got someone to entertain. Boy, is he happy.
Because his brothers have had it with him. They don't need to hear this anymore.
No, but Mikey has got someone. So he says, flies, stink bugs, that kind of thing. And she's got this horrified look on her face for a second. So I said, no, it was a joke. It was a joke. And everybody starts laughing at that joke. And in the middle of that laugh, we get a hard cut. Now they're inside around the table and everyone's laughing at something else.
Right.
And it's so beautifully done the way they jump us quickly from Splinter telling the story, them taking her home, the quick invitation in, and now they're up there getting to know each other in this really fun little scene. So,
Drew, I know who Rocky is. I got the Rocky impression reference.
Maybe I'll fight Apollo, maybe I won't. Yo, Adrian!
Right. I knew the Yo, Adrian, but I didn't know who Apollo was.
Yeah, I didn't get that part either, but...
Yeah. And he just keeps going. Apparently, they're loving the impression. Most of them are loving the impressions, right? Yeah. Raphael, again, has seen this show
a couple
more
of
than
times,
once. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, and even, and I even get the sense that he's not enjoying it, but he's almost like feeling a kind of secondhand embarrassment for Michelangelo when he says, "Oh no, now don't do Cagney."
So I don't know this reference. As a 40-year-old adult now, I still don't know this reference. Do you know this reference?
No, I don't. We're gonna have to get Mom on the show again. Bring her on. This is how old gangster movies sound, right? So again, I interpreted through what Michelangelo does here by going, "You dirty rat! You killed my brother! You dirty rat!"
That's very good. Well done.
It just. I assume that's from an actual movie.
I assume so also.
One of those old gangster movies. People listening to this, like, you guys are experts in the Ninja Turtles and this other, not experts, but like...
I'm not going to claim to be an expert.
Certainly compared to our knowledge base on Cagney. But yeah, Michelangelo, to the point though, is it's like they've got this movie that's for 90s kids, and they've filled it with all of these references from much older movies that no way the kids. This is definitely for the parents,
right?
At the time, right?
Or
like,
maybe
I'm sure
even
Mom and Dad got a kick out of this when we were watching it,
right? Or maybe the writer, right? Or maybe the director or whomever. Yeah.
And I love April's response to the "You dirty rat" impression. She says, "That must be Splinter's favorite." And the turtles don't get it.
They don't get it.
It's too clever. Huh? So now she has to do the thing that Mikey just did a second ago and say, it was a joke. Right. And then, like, almost one at a time, like dominoes falling, they get, because it was about a dirty rat. Okay, we get it now.
Yes. Well, because they're used to him, so that's not, like, the most obvious thing about him.
Yeah. And then Leonardo says, hey, speaking of which... We better get going back to the old man. And he says he worries. Yeah. I love that little line that snuck in there. He tells April, like, hey, we're all having a lot of fun here. We're goofing. We're doing impressions. We're eating pizza. But,
Right.
Dad worries, and I care about that, so I'm going to get the brothers home.
And like we said, this is a movie about family and families that work and families that don't and families that maybe could. And yeah, he worries. Do you think Shredder worries about his Foot Clan boys?
Right. So April, again, back to the reporter. She finally asks a reporter question. Will I ever see you guys again? And Mikey, I think, still doing something from some movie, because otherwise, where did he get the word indubitably? That's not how he speaks. So again, I think he's still in character. Indubitably, he says. And Donnie says, that depends on how fast you stock your pizza. So, but yeah, they make it clear they'd love to see each other again, and they all bounce, and they're all having a good time, and everyone's feeling good, which this is the point in the Final Fantasy game where then something terrible will happen, because we're all feeling a little bit too good about ourselves, and lo and behold. Yeah,
they're back in the sewers, they come up to the den, and there's like a big hole in the door. Mm-hmm. And the place is wrecked. It's trash. I mean, it was already kind of a wreck. Not like in an awful sort of way, but like this is definitely a rundown apartment sort of way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, everything's turned over and torn apart, and Splinter is gone.
Yeah. This is another one of those scenes there's almost no dialogue. There's a long period of time where we're just watching them come in and see that the place is a mess and discover without anybody saying anything. And they go inside and see that Splinter isn't there, and Leonardo falls to his knees, and Mikey and Donatello are just like beside themselves, right? And then Raphael comes in an absolute ball of fiery rage and sees that Splinter isn't sitting there, and it's intense, and no one says anything. I think Raph lets out like a scream.
So I want to ask, in this movie, Splinter moves kind of slow. He doesn't move a whole lot, in fact, and that might be due to puppetry work. But he's kind of slow. He's kind of old. Do you think he didn't fight them off? And in most versions of Ninja Turtles, he's still Ninja Master enough.
Yeah, capable.
So why doesn't he fight them off, I wonder?
Don't know. Must have just been overwhelmed by the numbers, I think, in this case. Because remember, we saw the Foot Clan soldier follow him earlier, so that they just come with enough people.
Right. Or maybe the place is wrecked not because the foot soldiers are vandals, but because there was a big fight. Maybe that's part of it, too, that I hadn't thought of until just now.
Sure, right. So the Turtles don't really have anywhere else to go other than where they just were. So they have to return to where they were just having this big fun party and go back to April's apartment and come to her in just absolute desperation.
Right.
And again, you could have over-told this. You could have over-explained it, especially to us young kids. But I knew what was happening. I remember 5 years old. I didn't need to have it explained to me. She says, "What's wrong?" And they just say, "Splinter."
Yeah. Yeah, that, again, subtle and nicely done.
Yeah.
Before we do the next bit, I just want to point out that April O'Neil's antique shop is called Second Time Around.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah.
I like it.
I enjoy those, right? It's a really cute antique shop, but terrible about what's about to happen to it.
Right.
It is a really great set, though. Like, a memorable one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we get a scene shift now to the police chief, Chief Stearns, who you'll recall April was given a hard time because that's her job. And Stearns has a picture of Danny Pennington. Remember the redhead who we had seen kind of getting mixed up with Foot Clan and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's clear they've got Danny on something. And, the police chief happens to know that his father is a powerful person. And this is literally how this stuff happens in the real world. It's how white supremacist power structures are reinforced all the time, because the powerful white guy calls the other powerful white guy to have a conversation about this, not in what should be done according to the law, but how we're going to do this so that all of us can look better and be better. And ooh. So he calls Dad and opens with, "You got a son named Danny, Charles?" Oh.
Yeah. ugh. Puts his feet up on the desk, real smarmy.
Yeah.
Because like you said, his solution is not to figure out whether or not there's any, whether or not there might be a warehouse across the bay or whatever. The bay, it's not, it's
sure.
New York.
Yeah, right.
But whatever. It's not to investigate that or even to pursue that, but rather to get the news to stop talking about what's happening.
Right. And again, something they don't over-explain. We get a cut right to the next scene. Charles is at April's apartment. She's telling the turtles to go and hide.
It's my boss.
Because they had to stay overnight because they didn't know what to do with no Splinter around. And so her boss shows up because, of course, he does. They have to ninja hide really fast. Some do a better job than others.
Right. For all that this scene infuriates me because Charles caves. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But for all that it infuriates me, there is a lot of fun shenanigans here.
Yeah. And he does the thing, like you said, he basically shows up and he tries to act like it's something else, but they're trying to silence her. He's clearly been intimidated by the chief of police. We can put that logically together in our brains, even as kids, and he's shown up to tell her to stop doing the reporting and let somebody else handle it, just for a little while. And she's like, first of all, and again, I remember as a kid thinking that seems reasonable. Now that I'm a sports reporter, but whatever, I used to balk from the word. I do it less lately. Now that I am a journalist, the idea of somebody telling you to stop pursuing your own story,
right,
and to stop your own line of reporting.
Not to stop, just take it easy for a while. Would you just take it easy?
And let somebody else handle it.
Yeah, you've been working awfully hard.
Do you want me to give my notes on my story? And she literally says, no way, it's my story. Which again, as a kid, I thought, well, she's being a little possessed. No, folks, this is how that works. That's how reporting works. You don't just hand your notes to somebody else.
Right.
And Charles knows that.
Well, and
that's what he's trying to silence it.
Exactly, but he's not telling her why. He didn't say, because Chief Stearns called me up and threatened Danny,
right,
who's in some trouble. Because what she would immediately do is say, well, now I have a report on Chief Stearns threatening the news director of Eyewitness Channel 3 News.
Right.
And she would be right to do so. Like, this is now part of the story also.
Right.
In fact, Charles, if he had any guts, like, you know what, you don't want your son to get in trouble, and Danny should be getting in a little bit of trouble, but I think that we need to do a better job of how we do youth criminal justice and criminal justice in general. But Charles should absolutely go on and do an interview with his star reporter and say, this is the call I got last night.
Yeah, right. But this is the problem with worrying more about just your own than about the general good and about trying to solve the immediate problem of, I don't want this to look bad. So they're having their fight back and forth. And then he starts going through the apartment and
right. Well, and so April is comfortable enough with her boss being in her apartment, her boss and her boss's son being there.
Yeah.
That that's not the problem. The problem is that he's asking her to not do the reporting. Right. So I like that they're also kind of friends enough to, he comes to check on her after getting mugged, and now it's okay. She's like, would you hand me that towel, please? You don't do that with somebody who's not a friend.
Right.
Don't touch my towels if I don't know you.
Yeah, totally. So they have that kind of relationship. Like you said, he's come to check on her. He has brought his son both times, which is a bad move in my opinion.
Poor Danny.
Poor Danny. But yeah, then as she's asking him to do all that stuff, she starts realizing the turtles are around. They have to keep rehiding. That's kind of the slapstick, funny parts. Or it's
I had never heard of a bathtub ring until this movie.
Yeah, I don't want you to see my unsightly bathtub ring. When she tells Danny, "Will you tell your father to relax?" He says, "I wish." There is so much in that "I wish." It's and actually if the two of them could just have a conversation, then there wouldn't be this carrot and stick dance with the chief of police to threaten you and not get the story out, that they're not doing their jobs.
So this movie is advocating for open communication between fathers and sons, right? Because Splinter's got no problem saying, Raphael, sit here, we're going to talk about your anger issues for a minute.
Yeah.
Whereas Danny and Charles can't talk about anything.
Yeah, right. Can't have a conversation at all. And then he finishes by saying, and again, he just says, just don't push any buttons today, okay? It's that's my job.
It is literally the job. There is a bit here where Danny is, I think Raphael's hiding under the table or something. There's a bad hiding spot.
Yeah.
And Danny sees him in the mirror.
Yeah.
And then turns to look.
He's gone.
Or maybe it's Mikey, because then the little panda bear thing is left there instead of him, which is a clever move. Because obviously I could not have seen what I thought I saw. It was the panda bear plushie thing.
Trick of the There's a few of those that are kind of cool.
And the music, there's this musical cue. That's the one. Yes. Whenever they do something ninja-y, clever. Yeah.
And it's got the little clangy wood sticks. It's the technical term. Yeah, it's really good. So, yeah, the second Charles and Danny leave, the turtles are right behind her, and Mikey goes, "Well, that was close," and spooks the hell out of April. Jeez.
Oh, no.
So then we get a little scene post outside with Charles and Danny sitting in the car, and again, Charles doesn't know how to talk to his kid without yelling at him, and he just says, "I don't get it, Danny. I make enough money to provide for both of us, and you're stealing. Why?" So at least now we know that Dad knows, because he just got the call from the police.
Right.
So now he's dealing with this side of it, right? And Danny gives every teenager's favorite response to any question. I don't know.
This used to bother me when I watched this as a kid, because yes,
Yeah.
Because you're being ordered to by the shredder.
Right.
But in being an educator and doing early childhood psychology and such, the prefrontal cortex of teenagers is not developed and won't be until early to mid-20s. I think it took me a little longer.
Right. I'm still working on mine.
Look. And so in a way, he might actually not know. Like when kids say I don't know, it might be they hadn't given it that much thought when they did it. And so they might actually not know, or at least not be able to articulate the complex thoughts, emotions, and so on.
Right.
And so encouraging young people to have conversations so that they can work things out, figure things out, and express themselves is important. And especially in the late 80s, early 90s, that was made fun of more than it was encouraged.
Right. Right. So I think a lot of that, I don't know, is all those things you said, and also like we were talking about earlier, he just doesn't know how to talk to his father about it. He doesn't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you about it. I could talk to my friends about this. Maybe, as we'll see later, I'd be more comfortable talking to April O'Neil about it.
Right.
But I can't talk to you.
Right.
And so Charles says, "Well, what were you doing with a car stereo anyway? Or don't you know that either?"
Ugh.
See, and that's the thing, is he's being just as immature about the conversation.
Oh,
he's he's in a fight like with his kid instead of like trying to understand and talk to and
he
be
wants
there
to
for.
win. It's not about Yeah.
And then Danny says sorry, and Charles says none of sorries are gonna be after school.
Ooh.
Oh, good, because corporal punishment,
Yeah.
threats of masculine,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put down
Right.
whatever little teen rebellion you think you're having right now.
Right. Yeah.
I've known fathers who treated their kids that way, who literally said things like that to them. You're gonna not as sorry as you're gonna be when you get home from school. And then imagine going to school all day with that. So why would he?
Yeah,
Danny, right here, honestly, Danny does. I might have done the exact same thing in this spot. Not that our parents would have ever put us in that situation, but as soon as he says that, Danny just gets out of the car and bounces.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here and let you treat me like I'm less than and then threaten me and give me no agency whatsoever. So he bounces. He just runs off and like goes down into the subway station. It's like, this is what we... Yeah, we got to look up what that song is.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, whatever it is. All right, Ira, now we get a scene transition to something that I'm not sure if it was supposed to scare me as a kid. And I think maybe a very, very little bit that it did. Like, there was a tiny bit of like, oh, this is where the bad kids hang out.
Oh, this is where the scary kids are.
But also... tell me this place does not look objectively dope. Like, I want to hang out here now. Like,
so maybe we talked about how parts of this movie might be for the parents. Yeah. Maybe this part is meant to scare the parents
Maybe. Because looking at it, it's like the worst thing they're doing here is smoking cigarettes.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a dark room with a bunch of arcade machines, an
Right.
indoor skate park,
Right.
a bunch of kids who are like coloring their hair however they want to.
Right.
Maybe
Mohawks.
playing
the guitar.
But people, it's just kind of a kid hangout spot where people are expressing themselves. And there's two shady things going on the surface level. One, the smoking of the cigarettes, as brought to us by Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, right. Sam Rockwell's in this movie.
An early, fresh-faced Sam Rockwell just kind of showing these two kids who look like they're legitimately like 13 years old.
Oh, yeah. The kids he's talking to look pretty young.
Yeah, I feel like this movie was made today. We would be told these kids were 13, but they'd look 19 or 20.
Sure, yeah.
Like, you really get a sense these are kids, you know, showing them, right, check it out, man. Anything you guys want, we got it. Anything you want to do. You know? And then the young kid asks, hey, you got any cigarettes? He grabs a bunch of boxes. Here's your cigarettes. Or whatever, right? But other than that, yeah, this great panels. It still looks cool today. Like,
it does. And it's just, they're just, like you said, they're just hanging out. They're playing cards. Maybe they're gambling, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're probably gambling with, like, the stuff they've stolen already. Like, the real problem with this is they're being recruited to steal for the shredder, right? And yeah, it's and we talked about this with the sort of moral panic of the 80s and 90s of, you know, do you know what your kids are doing? What if they're playing with playing cards? Like, our parents played cards with us.
Right. Played Skip-Bo.
I got my ass kicked at Skip-Bo more often than any other game in history.
You know what Skip-Bo is, man. But totally, right? So, like it's funny because you're right. The final exclamation point here is that we get to the part where they're being recruited into the Foot Clan. And so then we sort of see, I guess you would call it the military operation side of things. Right. And that's where it really becomes a problem, and we see, you know, somebody again, very young man, maybe 15 or 16 though, so they're giving us the sense of in one shot here, basically the progression of how you get in, because you want to play arcade games and you're sick of answering questions from dad, and you maybe want to smoke a cigarette, play some cards, and then that eventually becomes getting indoctrinated into the violent and criminal part of it.
Though I gotta say, a youth hangout center that also teaches karate is not out of the realm of possibility.
Again, like this whole operation, if Shredder and Tatsu were just like professors of something like that, they could have turned this whole operation into some really good stuff. Instead of going out there and stealing stereos, they just had them like planting trees and shit. This could have been one of the best organizations in the world. Let them smoke the cigarettes. I don't care.
Right. I mean, if that's
of all the things,
I know. Like, don't do it.
Yeah,
it's not good for you.
No,
but
yeah. So we see this kid who's about to become a full member of the Foot Clan, and he's sparring with just another kid his own age, kind of kicking his ass or whatever, showing that all right, this guy's going to be pretty good. And then this is our real introduction here to Master Tatsu, who does have a nice line earlier when he's just walking through looking all mean-spirited, and some little kids, just like 12, 13-year-old kids, like bump into him as they're running to the skate park and just go, play, have fun. You're like, okay, intense, dude.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. So he has a nice little sparring back and forth with Tatsu, who seems impressed. Then he goes to bow to him, and then again, this is where the problem comes in, because Tatsu just kicks him in the face and says, "Never lower your eyes to our enemy."
Yeah. So okay. So originally, I thought this meant keep your eye on your opponent, right? Because you never know. Because in a real fight, like, there's not going to be honorable bowing and whatnot, right?
Right.
So is that, keep your eye on the enemy, or is this you don't show respect to the enemy?
Right.
Because originally I thought it one way and then the other, and now I'm not sure which it's meant, or it could mean both.
Yeah,
or
there's a fine line there, but I think because it is on the surface not terrible advice for a real fight, like you said, but in the grand scheme of things, I think they're pushing more toward. Again, it's another step on the road toward now show them no respect.
Right.
And then we cut again, and we see the final step of that process of this young man now is going to become a full member of the Foot Clan. They like sound a gong or something, a bell goes off, and everyone has to stop playing video games for a minute because we have an important cult activity to do. And this is when you really get the sense that this is a cult.
Right. So lure them in with cigarettes and arcade games, and then you hit it home with with the speech we're about to get right now.
I love this speech, by the way.
It's a great speech, but I like how they really build up to it, because like you said, the gong goes off, everyone comes up to the grand hall of the Foot Clan or whatever.
It's like a big empty warehouse.
Yeah, and we've only seen Shredder sort of like quarter profile from behind and only like an eighth of the screen or whatever. And so now we get this slow reveal. This is our Jaws moment, right? It's revealing Sephiroth. It's whatever, whatever bad guy that you've been hiding up until now, and he sort of steps up, and he's got. We haven't done a lot of descriptions. We usually do sort of a character study.
So everyone knows what the Ninja Turtles look like or what Shredder looks like, but still, I mean.
But they do a slow reveal, right? Because he's in a cape, and you can see the helmet first, right? And it's got those 3 spikes, the 2 on either side, and the 1 over the crown of the head, or blades, I guess.
Yeah, they're kind of blades. There's that grated face mask.
Yeah, and then Master Tatsu comes up, and he folds the cape back over the spikes on the shoulders.
Right.
So it's like a literal reveal.
Yeah.
It's intense.
The way that the camera slowly moves, they roll out a red carpet for him. We see the long shadow that he's casting in the cape. The way the lighting, like this scene is legitimately fantastic.
Yes, it's really well done, and everybody is silent throughout.
Yeah. And the way his voice echoes, partly because they're in a warehouse, but also a little bit off of his own face mask, his deep, gravelly voice that just carries all of the gravitas in the world. I feel like this character doesn't get enough credit when we talk about like the greatest villains in comic book history.
Sure.
Shredder in general, but particularly this version of Shredder, who begins his speech when he finally gets to the young man who's been there waiting for him by saying, "Money cannot buy the honor which you have earned here tonight."
Right. So there's a part of it that's like they're stealing stuff, but they're not doing it for the money, are they?
Right.
And that is made clear here, because it's not for Shredder. This isn't about money.
Yeah. And back to your question about to what extent do they value honor or respect? Well, a certain level of it, he does.
Yeah. Yeah, in here, yes. Yeah. But not to our enemies out there.
No.
Us and them, right? Are you in the walls, you out the walls?
And he says to him, and remember back to our conversation on different methodologies of fatherhood, he says something here that you wonder if Charles Pennington has ever said to Danny.
Right, yeah.
He says to him, "You make us all proud." Now, you make us all proud by joining the cult and becoming a, whatever, but you make us proud.
Yeah, you are part of this family. Yeah. You make us proud.
Only effort, discipline, loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty.
Yep.
That last one. Earn the right to wear the dragon doji. And then he says the ultimate premise. The line that almost all disaffected youth want someone to say to them, right? We get a big sweeping camera movement as he says this. He's now no longer looking at this young man who's just joined the Foot. He's addressing everyone in the room, and he's turning as he says it, and the camera's turning with him. And he says, "You are here because the outside world rejects you."
Yes. And this mirrors what Splinter said, but in a different way.
Right.
Right, because Splinter said, you must always practice the art of ninjutsu, because even the people who would be our allies could not understand us.
Right.
Which is kind of the John Kent argument from Man of Steel, right? And Smallville a little bit.
And Shredder is just taking it where it's their problem, right? So Splinter says, hey, this is something we've got to understand because this is who we are, and we're going to take care of ourselves and navigate our way through the world and not expect everyone to change for us. Even though some people should probably change.
Right, yes.
But Shredder is basically saying there's no legitimacy to that rejection, and we all feel rejected at times. Everyone has felt rejected by the world most of us anyway, in one way or another. And these people that feel like that they don't have anywhere to go, he says to them, this is your family. And I am your father.
That really is some cult stuff, isn't
Yeah.
it? Ugh, yeesh.
Gets there, but only after he makes them all feel like he's seeing them. Because
Right.
he says, the outside world has rejected you. I don't reject you. I accept you for who you are.
Right. So not only do they reject you, but we're going to reject them, and we're going to stick it to them by stealing their car stereos and the $10 bill out of their wallet and the TV off their balcony and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we're going to stick it to them. We're going to raise funds. We're going to collect these kids. We are a family. I am your father.
This is important.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. And then he says, I want you all to become full members of the Foot.
That's it.
Yeah.
So earlier when I was questioning the logic of stealing a bunch of car stereos for a band of ninja thieves, it's not about the car stereos. It's about all of you become full members of
Right.
the Foot.
And now, it's not just enough for a theme, exposition, and an excellent shark reveal. We also need to move the plot forward a little bit here. And so Shredder gives us as fully formed members of the Foot.
Right, you and me.
Right.
We'd have done well.
A goal. He says there is a new enemy. Freaks of nature who interfere with our business. He says to his foot soldiers, or literally, figuratively, you are my eyes and ears. Find them. Together we will punish these creatures. These turtles. No, like, come on, man. You could so mess that line up. It could so have come on. And I'm sure there are people who do laugh and roll their eyes when he, like, whisper yells the word turtles with intensity. But come on.
Yeah.
That delivery.
It's good. And
turtles.
And he accepts it pretty... I mean... Because what happened is he sent his guys out to silence April. They came back and said, an anthropomorphic turtle with a pair of sais and highly trained martial arts skills just kicked all our asses.
And he went,
and so
I bet I know what that's got to do with.
Yeah, he gets it, right? Like, he's, okay, fine. So for whatever reason, he is willing to accept this ridiculous premise at face value. And, good on him, because... so often in these kind of stories, you put the aliens right in front of the people, and the people say, that's not real.
Right.
And I would like to think that were I in a sci-fi spec fiction story, I would accept the evidence right in front of me.
You're like, it's definitely real.
That is definitely a Ninja Turtle, almost certainly a mutant.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he's just prepped, and it stands in stark contrast to, again, it's like the police who are just trying to pretend that nothing is going on and aren't really searching for answers, where Shredder's just like, yep, okay, we need to be prepared for that then, and that sounds like problems. And he sends them out to discover these turtles, and then we hear a voice from off screen say, Master. So he said, such a little voice, Master.
Yeah. Now, I want to say this now because I might forget later. But next time we see Danny, he's got the headband. He's got the dragon doji. Yeah. So I think this is what earns him that, right? Even if he's not in the full ninja suit yet.
Right. I love that he's raising his hand, though.
I know, like such a little kid.
Yeah, like he literally is waiting for the Shredder to call on him in class so that he can explain that he thinks he might know something about these turtles because he just saw one under a table at April O'Neil's apartment.
April O'Neil's house. Oof.
Yeah. So that's the end of that scene, and we go back to another one of these really great moments where they're doing the report on the TV, and we're getting April O'Neil giving us a report, but we're also getting the turtles watching it on TV at her apartment now instead of in the sewer where they were before. So they're in her house watching her on TV, which is kind of this fun thing. And she's, once again, not doing what Charles told her to do. And she is reporting the news.
Well, this is kind of interesting because she's a reporter and now she's being interviewed by another reporter in the building, right? And as I understand it, reporters typically do not want to be the story. Like, they don't want if the story is about them, they're not usually involved in it.
Right.
But on the other hand, like,
well, we get a little exposition through dialogue here, which is great because she got mugged as a part of the story about people who were going around doing a bunch of these types of crimes. Now that she's being, asked.
So in your professional journalistic ethics expertise, is this an ethical interview then?
Yeah. Okay. In fact, I even think more reporters should be interviewed about their stories. I think a lot of people don't realize that most of the time when you're watching news on television or radio, you're getting a secondhand report from somebody who's not just repeating, but also analyzing what somebody out in the field went and did.
Right.
And
because they're the anchor.
Right. And so now they kind of play it fast and loose here because April plays both roles, and typically people don't do both of those jobs. But yeah, if you are in the field talking to people in Little Tokyo, doing the on-the-ground work, you've got all the notes and the research, you've interviewed the police, all of that, there should be an anchor who can sit down with you and crystallize that story, which is what they're trying to do here. And so, yeah, I actually think it's really... you don't want to make yourself the story, but if it happens, you also can't not tell that part of the story just because you're in it.
Right, and that's why that's one of the reasons I really like NPR and such, because then Terry Gross will interview a reporter about the story of getting the story or whatever, and I actually think that's really interesting.
Right. So she's given, the report, and I will say here, we were giving the boys crap earlier for only being interested in the fact that she's a babe.
Right.
And they do that again here, literally.
Specifically Mikey.
With the she's a babe. But I do appreciate that Leonardo says, boy, she's a good reporter.
Yeah, he's... Speaking of prefrontal cortex development, I think his is a little further along.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a real thing. You can have 20 different 15-year-olds in the library, and you get they're not all at the same stage of maturity.
Right. So right as Mikey is commenting on the fact that she's a babe after that, we get the audio comes through the television, and we hear her say an organization known as the Foot.
Yeah.
She just said that out loud on television over the public airwaves.
Yep. So, I mean, she absolutely... When she was interviewing Stern, she was speculating, right? She was asking, are you denying that they exist? But now she's saying, no, these guys exist, and they beat the shit out of me in the subway station the other day.
Yeah. I do love that the woman, who I think his name's June, since we're looking at the script, asks, the Foot, thank you.
Right. But then April takes a dig.
Yeah.
She's not taking this sitting down.
Sounds like a funky club for podiatrists.
Yeah. These guys beat her up, and she's like, oh yeah, well I'm going to go on this. Don't pick a fight with people who buy ink in barrels. Right.
So she gets into it. She talks about speaking to the community in Little Tokyo and a crime wave that's reminiscent of a secret band of ninja thieves who once operated in Japan. And again, the other reporter asks the very important question.
Yes, the obvious next question.
So are the police looking into it?
Because she had to go and report this, right?
Yeah.
Because she was a victim of a mugging, so you go and report it to the police.
And so April says, I've included everything in my statement. And then she looks directly into the camera and says, but I doubt very much that Chief Stearns is taking this possible connection seriously. So remember when Charles told her to take it easy and don't push any buttons?
So then it cuts to him in the control room, and he just puts his head in his hands.
Oh, man.
And then then the phone rings.
Yeah.
Remember, phones used to, they only had one ring. It was an actual bell inside the contraption.
And he picks it up. And we don't even see, no scene transition. We just hear
through the phone.
Chief Stearns yelling, Charles, I thought we had a deal. That's not how this is supposed to work. But yeah. So then we go to the wrap-up of the story. And June says, but you haven't told us, April, how you got away from your attacker. And I love this, when she says it's, some citizens of New York actually came to my rescue. Technically, she's a reporter, and she is not going to lie.
That is absolutely correct. Because I mean, the turtles were born. They were baby turtles,
Yeah,
right? They were born
citizens of New York.
here.
This is where I learned the phrase "Big Apple." By the way, it's the first time I heard this. She says, "Who says that everyone in the Big Apple just looks the other way?" But then she says, "I would like to take this opportunity to thank one of those individuals in particular, and if he's watching, thanks, Raphael."
Yes. Oh.
Because he's the one who came twice, right? He was the
Right.
first one in on the first fight with the Psy, and then he was the only one there in the subway
Right.
encounter who
Right.
ended up making the decision to take her back. And
Yes.
it was his decision. He could have left her there still wondering. And so I remember as a kid thinking, like, why does she single him out? I like all the turtles or whatever. But, like, because he was...
Yeah. He
was
carried her out of there.
Also, he's probably got the one whose name, when you say the whole thing, is least suspicious in New York. Raphael could be a
Sure.
lot of different people in New
Yeah.
York. Now, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo are a little more suspect. If you shorten them, Leo, Donnie,
Sure.
and Mikey,
Right.
there's certainly plenty of people in New York. But
Right.
if she was like, "Thank you, Michelangelo," that might have raised a few red flags.
Oh, then that's the fight.
Yeah. Well, we got to do this little part too.
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
And boy, do the boys
Oh man.
go right into everybody.
That was, yes. Cannot let that one slide.
I don't know what this noise is that Donatello makes, but I'm going to bring it back. Like, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a Three Stooges reference.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's a Stooges reference.
He's doing yeah, yeah.
And they'll do a long running gag in the third movie that's a Stooges reference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, old VHS in
there
the
you go.
sewers, right?
And I love the next couple of lines. Donatello says, "I think he's blushing."
Am not.
I said, "I think he's actually turning red." Of course, that's the color of his bandana.
Right.
And then he throws the Psy right between his legs.
Right. And sticks it in April's floor, which is rude.
But I love that Donnie replies, well, maybe not.
You know, Donnie and Raphael have had this fight before, and he knows when to stop.
Yeah. Raph's a little riled up in general, but he's going
Right.
to get back to the heart of the issue, and he just goes, "So what are we going to do now?"
And Leo says, "What do you mean? What are we gonna do?" This is another one of those.
Oh, here we go. Yep, this is one we know. Can we do
rhythms.
that? Here, I'll be Raph, you be Leo.
Okay.
We'll just call it out early, because we used to do this scene as kids, man.
Right.
We would do the back and forth. So, what do we say? I'll be Raph, you be Leo?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
So what are we going to do now? You know.
What do you mean? What do we do now?
Splinter's out there somewhere.
I know Splinter's out there.
No, I
And
gotta
Mickey and Donnie
fight?
fight
Kitchen?
kitchen.
Yeah, so what are we going to do about it?
What can we do about it? April's our only link to these guys. We have to wait until she comes up with something.
Oh, so that's the plan from our great leader, huh? Just sit here on our butts.
I never said I was your great leader.
Yeah, well, you sure act like it sometimes.
Yeah, well, you act like a jerk sometimes. You know that? And this attitude of yours isn't helping anything.
Oh, yeah? Well, maybe I'll just take my attitude and leave.
Why don't you?
I will.
Great. Good. Go ahead. We don't need you.
Ooh, Leo, we were having
Yeah.
a fine brotherly fight right until then.
Yep, man.
And everyone's upset, and Dad's gone, and but yeah, we don't need you. But Raph is not helping. Leo's not wrong. This attitude of his isn't helping things right now.
Yeah.
Bull grind.
Pork rind.
Those guys are just
Because
not
they've seen,
engaging.
again, they've
Yeah.
seen all this before.
Right.
And they all know Raph just needs to go blow off steam.
Right.
Leo's going to apologize for being an asshole.
Right. So now we get another really cleverly edited scene.
Yes.
You know, it's funny, we critiqued, or you especially, but I agreed with a lot of them about some of the Zack Snyder cuts of like two different scenes
Sure.
going back and forth, but like, why? Why not just do one and the other? Why are these scenes interspersed? Where a lot of these ones, obviously it's stuff that's happening at the same time, but we're processing multiple viewpoints, multiple ways of looking at the situation, because we pick up with Raph kind of throwing his fit on a rooftop and just kind of doing ninja kicks on the roof and trying to get out some of his angry energy. We've got Donnie and Mikey downstairs inside watching cartoons, specifically The Tortoise and the Hare, which
Perfect.
I did not get as a kid.
Yep.
And then we've got now Casey Jones again.
Right.
Who we're seeing again for the first time, and he's across the street somewhere with his binoculars like a total creep.
Right.
I guess he's looking out for crime, right? That's what we're supposed to get, that he's Batmaning, right?
Right, a little bit. I think he's fixing something. He's fiddling with something in his hands, and he's looking out over the city. This is my city. Yeah. And then he's like, hang on. Yeah. It's like sort of a big turtle.
Yeah.
No trench coat.
No trench. It's just the turtle, man.
And he doesn't say anything. It's just all in his expression,
Yeah.
right? Just like, hang on. He squints, and then he gets out his binoculars, because, again...
Yeah.
I don't know. People used to have binoculars, I guess.
I guess so. And he's met this guy before, so he's kind of like, Right. So we're back inside with Mikey and Donnie, very upset that the tortoise is losing to the hare.
Yeah. Take him out. Ninja kick the damn rabbit.
Kick the damn rabbit. We don't think about... we always think damn is Raph's word. Raph is the one who swears the most, but Michelangelo even swears in this movie. He's ninja kick the damn rabbit. So as they're watching cartoons, April returns home from work, and I will say Mikey now gives her credit. Says, "Hey, you were great."
Yep. Yeah.
Assuming again the report, and not just in being a babe. And she says, "Thanks, Mikey."
Yeah.
She called me Mikey. Such nerds.
Oh, a bunch of dorks.
And then... So they're asking if, she's heard anything about Splinter, because part of the reason that, she did the report is she's also hoping that they can maybe find Splinter this way if they're putting a little more pressure on the foot. She tells them that the story is going to repeat a couple of times, and they're just going to have to wait and see if we get any new information. So that's the plan from...
Right, exactly.
Kind of, yeah.
But he wouldn't have talked to April that way.
No, of course not.
Because... No. It's easier to yell at your brother than at the person whose apartment you're crashing.
Yeah, it's really helping you out here. So she says she told him to call immediately, and Leo's saying, we really appreciate everything. We really appreciate everything you're doing for us. And she says, "Hey, where's Raphael?"
Yeah, so Raphael is just up there, like he's doing a workout, right? He's going through his moves or whatever, and the.
All of a sudden,
the Foot Clan start creeping in because Danny Pennington told on him.
Yeah.
And Casey Jones with his binoculars, right? I don't think we see him here again, but we don't need to, right? We know that he's watching what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, we get this sort of back and forth where downstairs, Leo, Mikey, Donnie, and April are kind of having a nice time. They're watching cartoons now. She's going to give them a tour of the antique store. They're going to go have a look at all this cool old stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool old store, too. It's got great stuff.
And she asked, should we go get Raph or wait for him? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
He does this all the time. He just needs to blow off some steam. And then we catch up, and he's just fighting all these ninjas off.
Fighting for his freaking life up there, just blowing off steam.
It's a really well choreographed fight scene, I will say. There's some cool little moments in this, but he's basically kicking their asses, talking some shit, because it's fun Ninja Turtle banter. I love this line that, again, I probably didn't fully get as a kid, where he says, "You guys must be studying the abridged book of ninja fighting."
Right, yeah, because what kid knows the phrase abridged book?
Right. But again, by context clues, you figure it out. And as he's kind of beating them all down, again, he starts talking his trash. And this is, again, one of those lines I've got the music of in my head. I mean, come on. How do you guys expect to beat me?
And just 3 dozen more dudes show up.
And he goes, "Good answer. Good answer."
Yep. And so
it's a good joke.
It's kind of an intense fight too. It's neat. It's a cool choreographed fight, and not all of them are in this movie. And I think we've said that a few times. But the intensity of this fight gets juxtaposed here in a bit.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting and probably the correct move.
Yeah, they're going back and forth between it being very intense and very silly. Even him making the jokes. And then now he's way overwhelmed in the numbers, right? And instead of us immediately seeing them kick his ass, we go back inside really quick, and April's waxing poetic about how she's kept the store open for her dad.
So again, it's about families, right?
Yeah. About how much he loved junk. And she says, "I guess it's dumb to lose money on a business just because you miss your father."
Oh.
And Leo says, No, it isn't.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so good. And then this is a cool cut too, because April says "ready" as she's about to flick the lights on, and as she flicks the lights on, we immediately cut back to the fight.
Right.
And now Raphael's in some trouble.
Yeah, really getting his ass kicked, getting ganged up on. He's not getting any hits in. This is not going well for Raph. Back inside, I think it's Donnie who says this place has everything, but they're just kind of getting all excited about all the weird stuff, and then Mikey...
Oh, man. Mikey's a dick.
Finds some symbols and sneaks up behind Leo and crashes them together. Mm-hmm. Scares the hell out of him.
And April and Donnie see him doing it, and they don't say anything. Stop him.
I know. She plugs her ears because she's like, oh no, but she doesn't stop him. No. You're 100% right. For sure. And then our scenes kind of start to converge. We're getting quicker cuts back and forth. And they're kind of looking through the junk. And Raph's getting his ass kicked, looking through the junk. And then she goes, hasn't Raph been gone a long time?
Right.
Donnie says, no, he does it all the time. He likes it. Again, to that point. Like, they let him blow off steam.
Right. And then they cut to Raph getting beat up more. And then it cuts back to, are you sure?
And then it's one of these things, right? The old, you should be dropping in any minute.
Exactly.
And then he gets thrown through the glass, and the tone shifts immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Like, big joke, but now your brother just got thrown through the ceiling right to your feet. He's clearly completely unconscious, and everyone goes into, oh my God mode, and things become very serious very quickly.
But this is also a very silly fight.
Yes. Especially because it does begin. Does Mikey even ask? Oh, no, Leo does. Is he...
Right.
And April says he's alive.
Right.
Because, good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
Intense.
And then, like, they all...
And then we get back into the jokes and beating people up with symbols and...
Well, so all the foot, they jump in through they crash down through the skylight, which they just threw Raphael through. They jump in through the windows. They do all the ninja entrance things. And Mikey... breaks the tension.
Yeah.
Mikey says, whoa, and I thought insurance salesmen were pushy. And a ninja steps forward to intimidate him.
Yes.
And he does the Bruce Lee nunchaku showing off thing.
I love this scene.
And Mikey says...
No reason for it to actually happen from a plot standpoint. They should be immediately fighting each other, but I love this.
Right, exactly. So Mikey cannot... I don't think Mikey can be intimidated.
No.
He steps forward and he says, oh... A fella chucker, eh? Mm-hmm. And then they have a nunchuck. Yeah, a chuck off. Exactly right.
Careful how you say that, but yeah, a chuck off. Totally right. Like, and actually, I'm not familiar with like the more recent Ninja Turtles lore and some of the comic books and stuff, but I had heard about one where there's like a grim, dark future where all the other turtles are dead, and Michelangelo is like the hardcore one, and part of the reason why he survived is kind of like what you were getting at, is this notion that like, yeah, we treat him like, oh, he's the jokester, and he's doing the impressions, and he's always goofing off or whatever, but there's a certain amount of nothing can get to you that is kind of powerful about the Michelangelo character. It isn't talked about enough, I think. So yeah, they have this little chuck off, and at the end, Mikey just spins it on it like a basketball.
Right, like it was a basketball.
Says, keep practicing.
Right, and then and that's like the cue for his brothers.
Right.
Who are like, okay, let's get him.
So then the silly battle ensues. Yes.
We're dunking heads in aquariums, and we're rolling across the floor, and they bring in these giant axes and start trying to chop at him.
Right. Michelangelo gets knocked onto his back at one point and tells Donnie to spin him. Goes, Wheel of Fortune, dude!
Right. Like, from a fighting perspective, it makes no sense, but from a cartoon perspective, it makes perfect sense.
This is totally a cartoon fight, just in a live action.
And I like that juxtaposition because, like, upstairs or, on the rooftop, they're, like, dragging Raphael down the stairs and banging his head on each step. And, like, that's an intense fight. So I like that whomever, the director, the fight choreographer, somebody somewhere said, we need to take a step back. Like, this is important. And it's still going to be intense, but...
Yeah. There's so many good, like, the Wheel of Fortune references talked about where they're knocking people down, and Mike says, I thought everybody loved Vanna.
Right.
Or when they like you mentioned, they come in with the axes and they're trying to chop at him, but they keep missing and hitting the floor instead. And Mikey says, or no, first of all, it's I think Donnie sets him up and says it's a good thing these guys aren't lumberjacks.
Right. Yes.
And Mikey says, no joke. The only thing safe in the woods would be the trees. It's kind of a stormtroopers can't aim joke before that would even become a meme, right? Like they're poking fun at the cartoonishness of what's happening. And I love this line too, because then as there's kind of a pause in the battle and they look up and they see through the hole in the ceiling that a bunch more Foot Clan members are about to jump in.
Right.
And Donnie, the scientist among them,
right,
says, guys, I'm not sure if this is structurally speaking such a good time for your buddies to drop in.
Yeah, that's damn near a perfect line.
Yeah.
That is both a joke and a warning and a wry observation.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And then what he thought was going to happen, as most scientists know, then your hypothesis is put to the test and proven to be accurate, because all those guys jump in and the floor caves out.
Right. And I just want to talk about the numbers that the Foot Clan have.
Oh, yeah.
They've been at this for, a summer?
Yeah.
And already the number of disaffected youth Tatsu and Shredder have been able to recruit into their family is intense. And not all these guys are great fighters. But if you have enough bodies, you can take out even Raphael.
Right. So, yeah, and it gets a little more intense from here, though there's still some silliness going. But a lot of the fighting back and forth, and they're now overwhelmed in numbers. And again, I think it's Mikey or Leo mentions we could really use Raph right about now.
Right.
We're overwhelmed.
Because Raphael is often one of the best fighters of the four.
Right.
And he's super intense. And yeah.
Yeah. Because we need to add another element to this mess, as the Turtles are really getting their ass kicked. Ass is kicked, I suppose. The front door. Finally, someone used the front door for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Flings open, big light, and they're standing.
Smoke machine.
Yeah. There's Casey Jones. And he asks, would you guys mind telling me what you're doing with my little green pal over there?
Mm-hmm.
Because now he and Raph are friends.
Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, that was a friends fight.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then he's super inappropriate. At least Mikey calls April a babe when she's like on TV and not in the room. And he turns and looks at her and goes, ooh, who's the babe?
Yeah.
Like, dude.
Come on.
Right in the middle of all this like fighting and stuff. And
also, why aren't you watching the news, man?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Pay attention.
There are a couple things that Casey Jones does in this movie that I do not like.
Yeah.
This is pretty mild. Because it could be because they joke around when they fight, right? So I interrupted the fight. I have everyone's attention. I get to crack jokes too.
Right.
Who's the babe? It's inappropriate, but it's not terrible.
Right.
There's a couple other things that are like, we could have done that better.
And then they got to give him a little bit back because the Turtles are like, who? Because the only one who knows who he is unconscious right now.
Right.
So who the heck is that? And Mikey, just always on, says, Wayne Gretzky on steroids?
So is this Casey Jones a particularly big dude? He's not like The Rock big.
No, yeah, but I guess back in 1990 that was a big guy. Because, he does not look like somebody on steroids. But I guess the idea, maybe more the anger issues or he's got a roid rage thing going on here, right? He's wearing a hockey mask and he's clearly ready to come in here and fight, even though nobody in the room seems to know who he is.
Right, but he's obviously on the good guy's side.
Right.
The fight, Tatsu gives the order to attack. Right, so we're still going to have this fight. Casey Jones joins in. So now it's 4 on a bazillion.
And the music finally shifts to serious music.
Yeah, this is back to a serious fight. And one of the axe-wielding Foot Clan takes a swipe at somebody, misses, and cuts right into the electrical cords.
By the way, that guy died.
No kidding, right?
I hate to break it to you, and I didn't realize until I was watching this movie later. I was like, there is no way that... And again, how old are these kids?
Right.
God, indoctrinated cult member, but that Foot Clan member...
Probably a lot of them did, too. Because on the one hand, because there's all these guys who were unconscious in the apartment above. They fell through down to the antique shop.
Right.
And now, because this guy hit the electrical cords, and there's a lot of old junk here, and probably stuff's not up to code... A fire starts.
Yeah.
So he goes, because he's being electrocuted, and it's kind of funny, but not really.
I know, right? When I was a kid, I thought it was funny. When we were watching this again, I was like, oh man, that dude definitely just got electrocuted to death.
Right.
Goodness.
And then how many people die in this resultant fire?
Yeah, like it's intense. It gets really intense at this point, right?
And they don't really bring it up, but there's a part of me that wonders, like, oh, now the Foot are really invested in taking out these dudes because they just killed like a dozen of their friends.
Right. So, April starts saying, I think there's a trap door somewhere here to the basement so we can get out of here. All we've got left, because the whole place is going up in flames. All they can do is get out of there. They find it. They get to the door. Turtles and April are filing out. And to Casey's credit, he says, go on, I'll cover you.
Right, because they've been in a fight longer than him.
Right.
So he knows he's more fresh.
Right.
He can cover them. They can get out the back. He can follow. That's an excellent move. For allies you've only just met.
Yeah.
Well done, Casey.
So he's covering them as they make their escape. He's fighting off the few Foot Clan members who are coming that way. And then it's so weird that this happens this way. Like, I don't know how I would have written it differently, but like, she gets a phone call from Charles, and it comes on her answering machine, like right as they're leaving, and Casey's the only one to hear it, and he fires her over voicemail.
Right. It's not... I mean, first of all, we didn't call it voicemail then. It was an answering machine.
Right.
And there was like literally a cassette tape in there.
Right.
Good Lord.
I know.
80s technology,
It clicks
man.
on. I was like, oh, remember? And you could hear people leaving a message because you could pick up the phone and answer it while they were leaving a message if you wanted to talk to them. But
so, you wait to see whose voice comes over the speaker.
Yeah, I'll talk to this person. Casey basically hears April O'Neil get fired over the phone. The voice machine breaks from its cord and smashes a foot soldier.
Well, but this is a joke too, because what he says is, April, I'm sorry. I know this comes as a blow.
Oh, yeah.
And then it snaps and hits a dude on the head.
And Casey says, you could say that again, pal. Or Chuck.
Chuck, yeah, because he introduced himself as Charles.
Say that again, Chuck. And, I don't know how this door works either, but apparently once they get on the other side of it, there's no way for the Foot Clan members cannot figure out how to open this trap door that they just went through seemingly
Why do we
easily.
have this trap door, too? Like,
it was very plot convenient, wasn't it?
It definitely was. And it leads directly to her Stone Age van.
I guess, a truck that they can take out to a farmhouse that they've got.
Right.
And then we get good old ninja vanish.
Right, because the fire's been going on long enough. The fire department's coming.
Yeah.
So the sirens are approaching.
And then there's that shot as they're leaving that, again, as a kid, I was like, oh man, it's a bummer. Now as an adult, I'm like heartbroken watching that shop with all those wonderful antiques and things and the family history and her apartment and all of that stuff just go up in flames. And
that's like, 2 homes that are wrecked that they can't go back to.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's where we're going to have to leave this episode. Just going to leave it with a burned down home. Yeah, this Ninja Turtles movie is kind of intense, man.
It's a little intense, which is why I think it's a good idea when they also have the goofy fight music and the symbols and the and the jokes about Vanna White, because this is rough.
Yeah, it's a lot, but they do escape with their lives and therefore hope to regroup and fight again another day.